Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Lights Out F1 podcast. It is just myself, Matt Salmons. Joshua Fletcher is here as always, and Callum McAvoy is also here. And we're going to be discussing last weekend's race of the season, the French Grand Prix. It wasn't race of the season, we all know that. And we're going to be looking forward to what could be this year's race of the season, the Hungarian Grand Prix, or what we could say was last year's probably funniest race of the season, with Lewis Hamilton starting on the grid all by himself after a safety car restart. I think we all found that pretty funny last year, but who knows what's going to happen this weekend. But before we get into that, we've obviously got the French Grand Prix to talk about. We're going to take a trip down memory lane as well, because we've obviously had some big news today, which we're going to get into later. And then we're going to look ahead, as I said, to the Hungarian Grand Prix, which is coming up this weekend, before we get a nice summer break, which I think is it 4 weeks long, something like that. So yeah, let's get straight into it by talking about the French Grand Prix, and start as we always do by looking back at our predictions. And Joshua, Callum is not here. He's the only one that got a qualifying prediction right. He predicted Charles Leclerc to be on pole, and he was.
Yep. It was a decent weekend, or it seemed to be a decent weekend for the Ferraris. I don't know, I sort of had a feeling Max would have the edge, but Ferraris did really well, and fair play to Charles for that initial sort of part of the weekend. Didn't really end his way, but it is what it is.
And I don't think there's too much more really to say about qualifying, apart from the fact that in the race, for Charles Leclerc, Callum, he couldn't make that pole position pay off and was in the wall on lap 18.
Yeah, I mean, it's God. I've written so much about this this week. Does everyone want Max to win this championship? Like, clearly, like,
all right.
I know you love it, Matt, but like, it's just, I kind of joked, people in the chat, Ferrari. The joke was always Ferrari were the Manchester United of Formula One. Great in the past, and the last 10 years it's been tragic, to be honest. And now they've kind of morphed into Spurs, just want to bottle every opportunity they get to win anything. And it's just heartbreaking now. I'm not a Ferrari fan, but I'm a big Leclerc fan. I can't deal with this heartbreak. It's just not. It just doesn't seem fair. Almost, it's like when are they going to catch a break? When is this championship going to get interested? And this could truly have been one of the great championship battles, I think, between Leclerc and Verstappen, and it's kind of been ruined. And it's not Verstappen. Verstappen's doing nothing wrong in this. He's just cruising along, having the time of his life, and it's just complete capitulation from Ferrari and Leclerc.
I think even Joshua Verstappen seemed disappointed by the fact Leclerc crashed. On the radio, he's like, "Oh, okay, Leclerc's out. That's kind of a shame." And in his post-race interviews, he was saying, it was a shame. How do you think he's feeling about all of this? Do you think he wants that fight? Because it's a difficult one. On the one hand, you want to win a championship as easily as possible and probably win every race and hope nobody else gets near you. But on the other hand, he must love having a fight. And the only way Max Verstappen knows how to win a championship is in a close fight, race by race, with Lewis Hamilton that he had last year.
Yeah, sort of. He's only really been in this position once before. That was last year. And he had a big lead, and Hamilton battled back, and it went to the wire. And we all know what happened. We have disagreements on how that played out, but in the end he won the championship, and it was a hard-fought battle that went into the final race of the season. And I think that's what we probably would have hoped. Like, I think all sportsmen hope for that. You don't really want to just go and walk. If you're a footballer, you don't want to walk the league. You want a bit of competitiveness in there. You want a bit of you want some challenge. You want a couple of lows to bounce back. I think inevitably he will end up winning the championship, probably by quite a long margin. Just based on the reliability of the Ferrari. I know the Red Bulls have had some issues before, but it's just not seeming to click properly 100%. But look, if he gets his second world championship, he's not going to complain in the circumstances he's done it, just how he didn't complain in the circumstances he won his first one. But I think he would like a bit more competition. I think it's too far gone now for the Mercs to offer him that.
And Callum, the thing Leclerc came out and said was, if I keep making mistakes like this, then maybe I'm not ready to fight for a championship. And I saw somebody on Twitter say during the week that Leclerc is ready to fight for a championship, but maybe he's not ready to fight Verstappen for a championship. Would you say that's fair?
Not necessarily, to be honest. No, I would say that he's obviously quick enough. I think he's been probably the quickest driver this year, to be honest, in terms of just straight up pace. I think it's very telling that we've had 12 races this season. He's been on pole for 9 of them, but he's only won 3 of them. And I think that it just shows that, and it's not always been his fault. There's been strategy problems, there's been reliability issues, but it's kind of proof enough that he just doesn't quite have that consistency yet. And he will learn this. And there's an interesting point that he's always been very hard on himself, Leclerc. Remember the "I'm stupid" comment that he made a few years ago? And again, this is kind of a very similar thing. And someone mentioned this, and on Twitter, and I'm kind of, it's been stuck in my head that maybe what he needs that kind of, dare I say it, kind of Christian Horner, Helmut Marko figure telling him, no, you are the best driver in the world. You can do these things. You can. Because as much as I've hated Verstappen for not acknowledging his mistakes, maybe that's kind of what Leclerc, he needs that kind of mentality. He needs to go, no, I am the greatest driver of all time, and I will win every race that I enter, kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe this could be a turning point for Leclerc. Maybe he does need to take a leaf out of Verstappen's book. Yeah.
Would you agree, Joshua?
Yeah, I guess there could be some success in that model of, you've sort of seen that with a lot of Red Bull drivers. You look at Max, sort of, I think in the end, probably Horner and Marko pushed him over that line. Sort of what he did. I don't want to say the dark arts mentality, but there was a couple of moments that, he forced him off track, or the braking, or brake checking. There was a couple of dark arts that ultimately helped him go on and win that championship. Binotto probably isn't that guy. But it's so hard to say, because when you look at Mercedes dominance, Toto Wolff is the complete opposite to Helmut Marko. Like, that he's most of the time very chilled out, seems like a really nice guy, and yeah, probably privately pushes his drivers and his route, like same sort of bit ruthless. But Mercedes dominance is so long in for with a completely different character. So it's hard to say, it's hard to judge. Potentially he needs someone in his corner, just like not being his hype man, sort of just telling him he can do it, but bringing that confidence back in him that I don't know if Binotto has done. You saw at Silverstone, he sort of almost had a go at him publicly, like in front of everyone, sort of shouted at him. So yeah, you still got, like, you did really well that race. So I don't know.
Do you think, Callum, that maybe that, I mean, we've kind of already said it, that mindset needs to be installed in? Because you look at Carlos Sainz, for example, and what we see of him on Netflix, and particularly his interviews, he does seem to kind of have that mentality in himself, to kind of, he knows that he can do better. And that maybe, obviously, the car hasn't helped in recent weeks, but Carlos Sainz kind of has that mentality. So it kind of makes me think, why doesn't Leclerc?
I don't, it's different personalities at this point, isn't it? You kind of want a kind of hybrid of the two, I guess, don't you? You kind of want Sainz's kind of personality with Leclerc's skills. Leclerc is the quicker driver, I think. I know Sainz beat him last year, but this year, or at least this year, Leclerc has been able to adapt to the car a bit better, perhaps. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just a personality thing, and he needs to work on that. But he's clearly got the skills. It's just I don't know what was happening with the spin in France. I don't get, because he wasn't under pressure or anything. It just a lapse of concentration or something. And yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, but I think he will bounce back from this. And I think it's a good thing that we've got another Grand Prix so soon, so he can just instantly go, right, forget this. I need to focus on this weekend. Whereas had he done this in Hungary, then he'd have the whole of a whole month, the whole summer to go, oh, why did I do this mistake? Well, and he'd have that kind of weighing on his mind. So I don't know. I think if anything, this season has kind of shown that there's a real mental side to F1. It's not just about the skill in the car. It's about how you are out, both in and out of it, I guess.
I think the only thing to kind of say to that is, how long can we keep affording to let him make mistakes? Would he still be top for championship if Max Verstappen wasn't there, driving like he is? But I guess that's kind of another discussion that he would probably need to have with the team in terms of how many mistakes he can keep on making before the team kind of go, yeah, we obviously know he's quick, but maybe we need to start thinking about somebody else. But I think that's years and years down the line. He's still obviously got a long way to go in his F1 career. Joshua, I'll come straight to you as the Mercedes fan. Obviously, Max Verstappen won the race in the end, which myself, Joshua, and Callum O predicted. Lewis Hamilton and George Russell second and third, which none of us predicted. You must have been loving that, Joshua, to see both Merc drivers on the podium.
Yeah, of course. First time this season it's happened. I want to say long time coming, but they haven't deserved it. They've improved, consistently improved. Hamilton, I know he sort of started with the podium, sort of dropped off a bit, sort of been building up to it. Hopefully building up to a race win if circumstances, go their way. He's probably consistent now. He's probably looking at that sort of third and fourth, probably battle now, which he's not used to in recent years, but I think he'll take rather than being sort of sixth and seventh. Russell's an interesting one. He battled hard, he raced hard. I think made a couple of mistakes in that race. I don't know, he's a Mercedes driver, definitely. He's that sort of competitive driver that perhaps Bottas wasn't. He isn't necessarily happy being the number two, sort of settling for fourth. Ultimately got third. But I think that was the race we saw almost, I don't know, sort of a level to him that we haven't necessarily seen, because he was sort of the guy at Williams, and it was the first time I think I can remember seeing him properly make, I don't want to say rookie or amateur mistake, because he's a driver none of us are, but he made a couple of errors there that I think maybe the occasion or the potential got to him.
Let's just go back to Hamilton first, Callum. I think the thing for me was it looked like he was relieved by the end of the race to finally kind of get that second place, go one better than third. And we obviously we've seen Hamilton consistently winning over the last 7, 8, 9 years. But obviously we see joy on his face when he wins. But it seemed like Hamilton was more delighted with second on Sunday than he was with any kind of win last season, which seemed a bit strange.
I think he's kind of learnt to kind of enjoy his year, to be honest. This is the first time really since 2013 he's not been challenging for the title, which is kind of remarkable when you think about it.
Yeah.
So he's kind of taken this, I guess, view of, well, I'm just going to do the best that I can do. If I can win a race, that's great. If I can get second, that's great as well. And I do think he'll win a race. I think that Mercedes is going to be capable of it in the second half of the season. Again, for all the complaints being made about Mercedes, they're not far off Ferrari and the constructors. They've been so consistent. We've been talking about Russell being, Mr. Consistent, top 5 in nearly every race this season. Lewis has been pretty much close to that as well. So, yeah, I think he's just enjoying it. I think it was a special moment again. It was his 300th race as well in Formula One, so I think that the occasion kind of got to him a little bit there. Plus, he was just exhausted afterwards. He said after the race he hadn't been drinking any water. He literally collapsed in the cool down room as well. So yeah, I no doubt he was relieved that the race was over. But no, I honestly think this has been quite a refreshing year for him. Obviously, it'll be disappointing, and he needs to win a race, definitely. But I think he'll take heart from this.
I think without doubt, well, not without doubt, but I think it's fairly likely that he'll win a race before the season's out, and I think that would be quite nice to see. And yes, I am actually saying that. So yeah, we'll just have to wait and see with that one. Let's talk about his teammate. Let's go back to that, Joshua, with George Russell. And that move, that lunge down the inside of Sergio Perez, obviously both drivers blaming each other as they do with kind of every overtake and kind of collision that ever happens, forced Perez to kind of go straight across the chicane. For me, I thought Russell was far too back and it was too late to even make a move down the inside. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it was tricky. I was initially like, oh, go for it. Sort of back, like in that instance, sort of for me, I was backing Russell. Like you want him to go for it. I think Perez was struggling with his tyres at that point. It was the potential that he could get into podium places. And then you watch the replay, like, you weren't ever ahead. I know he thought he was, but from the angles I saw, he was never ahead, or he was never well, it was great. He was never front to rear. He never had that. I don't think he ever had that sort of gap. So I can't really back him on that one. He probably did make a mistake. Not enough to make a penalty, I don't think. I think he didn't get away with it there, but he pushed hard. It didn't pay off in that moment, but he made it stick. But I don't know. He was lucky because that could have been quite bad.
Callum, a bit of a desperate move for you as well, or did you see it differently?
Thought it was all right, to be honest. Josh has kind of summed it up, to be honest. I think, yeah.
But then something even smarter from the VSC restart, which to me seemed very confusing because it seemed to be ending as they were coming out the chicane, and then it ended kind of like on the penultimate corner. But clever from Russell, to be fair.
Oh, very clever. Yeah, it was. I think Perez kind of had a moan about it afterwards. Like he was basically told it was going to come to an end, and then so he kind of started to pull away, and then it didn't. It was like, oh, so he slowed down, and then it came to an end. And I think he tried to have a go at the FIA, basically saying, "Well, I was given the wrong information, and it cost me the business." I love you, Perez, but no, it's racing. You got to deal with it. But no, it was a bizarre thing. I think George would have caught him anyway, to be honest. He was looking really good towards the end of the race. So I didn't quite like Helmut Marko's comment saying, oh, maybe he was on the tequila. Maybe he was joking, I'm sure, but I don't know. I don't trust the word that man says. So.
If it was a joke, it didn't really seem that funny either. But I suppose
bit of racial stereotype in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. I'm like, okay. The only other thing to talk about from the race was Ocon hitting Tsunoda. I think it was on the first lap, or it was certainly on one of the opening laps. I think Ocon ended up getting a penalty for that, which I think we can all agree was pretty fair, and a pretty silly move from the Frenchman. And that links to your wild prediction that you made, Callum, where you said no French driver in the top 10. Ocon did finish 8th, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it was always a bit of a long shot because he's actually looked quite good this season. Gasly obviously finished like 12th, so I got that one okay. But not being spoken about a lot, but Alpine are now 4th in the table ahead of McLaren. Quite an interesting battle. They were level on points after Austria, I think. So it'd be very interesting to see where that goes for the rest of the season.
Yeah, they're not down in 9th, Josh.
No, not quite. Again, I say it every time we bring this up. I got swayed by Twitter and pre-season testing. I'd apologise.
And I got swayed by you, which is even worse.
Yeah, if I'm going to go down, I've got to drag down someone with me. So that was a bad one. Obviously, hindsight. Don't get dragged and sort of make assumptions based on one session in testing, and don't listen to Twitter for your F1 facts unless it's us.
And you obviously, Joshua, you also caused the Haas curse. You predicted double Haas points, and they finished 16th and DNF. Yeah,
I'm always wary with my wild cards of saying something will happen because it always is the opposite. But they were on good form. I think Mick was looking good in some races earlier. Magnussen's always been quite consistent, but yeah, DNF and I don't know. Mick was doing quite well, I thought, and then I don't know what happened, but it is what it is. We move on, and no, I don't think I got any points this weekend. Maybe one. I don't think I did very well.
Verstappen winning, I think, was the only point you got.
One closing the gap, but slowly but surely. But I think Callum's pulling away with this one.
Well, to be fair, Callum got 0 points this weekend. Nothing in qualifying, nothing in the race, and nothing wild. So the gap is closing. Just speaking of Haas and I think it was Kevin Magnussen, who had a little collision with Nicholas Latifi. What did you make of that one, Callum?
It seems like there was a crash between like all of the rear runners, wasn't there? Ocon, Tsunoda. There was another one as well. Obviously, you just mentioned the Mags one. Didn't Max Schumacher have a go in with running with someone? I don't know. It seemed like kind of everyone was having a crash. And Hugh says the French Grand Prix is boring. It was actually quite good. That's one of the better races this season, I maintain. Oh well. Yeah. What was the Max? He just hit. Who was it?
Magnussen and Latifi. I think didn't Latifi turning on him, maybe? I can't quite. It was Latifi that went off, I think. But I also remember Schumacher being spun round at some point, but I can't remember who that was with. Maybe it all just merges into one. It's those.
It does.
It's those stripy lines on the track that just confuse me. Okay, let's move on then. Callum O. Now, I will take fault for Callum O getting a point for this because he said last week the message he put in the chat was Aston points, and he wasn't specific whether that was double points or one car in the points. I think it was Stroll who got in the points in the end, and obviously we messaged him this morning saying, "What did you mean by Aston points?" He said, "Oh, only one car in the points," conveniently, and obviously Aston did get a car in the points, so we have given him the point. We do trust that that's what he meant, but who knows with Callum O? We'll have to grill him next week after Hungary. So, and then the final wild prediction is me. I said that somebody would say that there was 167 variations of the track. Now, I did originally say it was Crofty. I didn't watch the race live, but I did watch it on the Channel 4 highlights, and Alex Jakes, who's the lead commentator for Channel 4, definitely said it. So I'm giving myself the point for that one. I need it.
I think we need to run back the clip, because if you said Sky Sports commentators, I don't think you get it, because I didn't hear it on commentary.
I'm almost certain you said Crofty, and Crofty definitely didn't say it, because I remember.
I heard it on the commentary I was listening to. I should have said Alex Jakes because I knew that I was working on Sunday and would have watched it on Channel 4. So come on, I'm miles behind.
Half a point. I'll compromise. If Channel 4 definitely said it, I trust you. But Crofty definitely didn't, and I'm sure you mentioned Crofty or.
Yeah, I definitely. I know I said Crofty because I listened to the predictions back before we started. But Channel 4 definitely said it, so I'm giving myself a full point. I'm the referee here. So
if you win by that 1 point,
I won't because I'm miles behind, so it's fine. The way the table looks is Callum, you obviously didn't score any points. You stayed top on 18. Joshua, I've got some bad news. Callum O has caught you up. You are both on 16 points. And then I'm lonely at the bottom on 12. So that includes my variations point as well. So I've got a lot of catching up to do in the second half of the season. Joshua, Callum, the French Grand Prix doesn't look like we're going to have it next year the way it's looking at the moment. Joshua, I'll come to you first. Is that something you're bothered about?
Oh, well. It's like, look, it's not been awful the last 2 years. It's not been awful. Something has happened in the last two. There are much better tracks on the grid, and I don't know what's coming in to replace it. Or I know South Africa's being spoken about. I know we're getting the Vegas race. We're sort of getting good tracks or good events, and nothing really happens in France. It's not an amazing race, and it's not like an outstanding event. There's not really any hype about it, I don't think. Like, you think Vegas coming into it is going to be a huge weekend, and they got rid of the trophies. They replaced the trophies. That was the best bit. So no, not necessarily going to miss it if it does go, but if it stays, it's got better the last 2 years. I think this year with the new regs and cars, it wasn't awful. So it is what it is. But I don't think they've renewed their contract. So
I think during the race when it showed the previous winners, I noticed there was a gap. I think 2020 was missing, because we went there last year, and I was like, oh, I didn't even realise we didn't go there in 2020. So that's kind of how forgettable it is for me. Callum, are you thinking any differently?
I missed that last bit. Can you repeat that? Sorry, Matt.
The French Grand Prix. Are you bothered that it's not going to come? That it may not be on the calendar next year?
Nah. No, actually, in Syria, like it should be noted, we had record crowds there this year. There's clearly an appeal for it. There's 2 French drivers on the grid, 3 if you count Leclerc as well. So there's clearly interest. It's just they don't have a good circuit to host it on. Granted, neither does Qatar, and yet they're somehow getting a race next year, and they don't even have an F1 driver. So, look, we'll do that massive calendar circuits pod, and we'll absolutely discuss all of this again, I'm sure. But I wouldn't be upset if France left a calendar. I would be if we ended up getting something like Qatar to replace it, with what we know we're getting Qatar anyway. But it's the lesser of two. Yeah, well, no, it's not even that. It's going to be on a street circuit again. And again, same with Vegas, another street circuit. Do the US need 3 Grand Prix? That's debatable. Look, it's the less. I don't love Paul Ricard, but as Josh said, last two Grand Prix have been quite good. With these new cars, it actually looks like a decent venue. Uh, I mean, I'm going to be more upset when Spa goes. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Let's save track discussion then for a couple of weeks' time, which will be coming up very shortly. Let's talk about some news. This section would have been completely empty. I don't know what we would have talked about until around 12 o'clock this afternoon when it was announced that Sebastian Vettel is going to be retiring from Formula One. Obviously, I think it was last night, Wednesday night, as we're recording this, that he joined Instagram, and then kind of 12 hours later, 18 hours later, he announced his retirement to from Formula One. Joshua, your initial reaction?
It's a shame. I think he seems to be a really nice person, and you've sort of seen he's very outspoken in his views on the sport and the way that it's being run. He likes to sort of help make a change, a difference. You've seen him, I think it was at the start of the season or back in the last season, he went when we went to one of the Middle Eastern countries, he helped with the Women in Sport program. He wore the Pride shirt during We Races One. He's very outspoken and sort of isn't afraid to share his political beliefs, and is a real drive for change, and is a big campaigner for that, similar to Lewis, and that's probably why they're such good friends and sort of get along and have a good relationship. So it's sad hasn't really lived up since those four championships. Obviously, the move to Ferrari didn't necessarily materialize as he would have wanted, as racing fans would have wanted. Pushed hard, but never really got over there. And the Aston thing just hasn't worked. He's tried his best. It's not a good car. It's a shame, and we'll lose an amazing driver. I think someone who will go down in the history books as easily one of the best drivers we've seen in the sport. I mean, for some people, probably their favourite, some top 5, top 10, could easily make a case for him being there. But it's a shame. I'm intrigued to see who they bring in to replace him. That's now what I'm interested in, because there are drivers who deserve it, who haven't had a shot yet. Do they go down that sort of Lawrence Stroll, getting another Canadian, getting a young driver, or get a big name, or get another one of, like, I don't know, his mates' kids? I don't know. We'll see.
I think for me, Callum, the vibe I kind of got from his retirement announcement on Instagram, which if you haven't watched, go and watch it. It seems to me like he's kind of falling out of love with F1, and there's kind of other priorities now in his life that he seems to enjoy. And I think now I think of that, I can kind of see it, the way he kind of conducts himself. He's kind of very kind of mediocre and doesn't really show much emotion when he's, in his driver interviews and stuff. We still see bits of him now and then, but to me it seems like Formula One is no longer his priority. He's got a wife and family and whatever that seems to be more important than that.
Yeah, you get this with a lot of drivers, don't you? They kind of have their kind of peak of their career, and then they're kind of like, well, what more can I kind of do? And especially with the calendar having 20 plus races a year, you spend less time with your family, you spend less time doing things you love to do. And it's a lot of people were not happy when Nico Rosberg retired a week after winning the championship, but for him that was all he ever wanted to do, and he had a family who he wanted to be with, and he decided, well, that's what I'm going to do now. So he's a 4-time world champion. He is statistically one of the best of all time. Is he in that kind of greatest of all time argument? I'd argue not quite. I think there's a few drivers you'd put above him there for sure, but he's definitely earned the right to kind of do whatever the hell he likes now. And I think as well, we were trying to chat. I'm still in the process of writing this kind of glowing report of him, sort of, for the Metro, and it's a difficult one because he was never a driver you really liked. I certainly never liked him when he was at Red Bull. Got a little bit better at Ferrari, but not much. And then it was only really in the last few years you've gone, damn, Val is a really nice guy, and he's always been that way. You just never really saw it, and I don't know if it's just because the pressure of not having to fight for a title is off him. He's always had that. ever since he moved to Red Bull in 2009, again, a bit like Hamilton, he's always been fighting for a title. He's been with a team that is expected to fight for titles. So, just stepping away at Aston Martin, he's been able to relax more. He's been able to talk about things that he likes, environmental stuff as well. It makes sense that he'd retire now. I think he could have kept going. I think he's good enough to have kept going, but he's earned that right to say, "Hey, I've had a great 15 years, and I'm going to leave it at that," kind of thing. I hope this isn't the end of him in the F1 paddock. Would absolutely love him to go into punditry. Would love to see him on Sky Sports every now and again. I think he'd be absolutely brilliant. But yeah, found myself a little emotional today. I never ever thought I would be about Sebastian Vettel. So there you go.
Yeah, I think we all know how. I think we all know how highly I rate him by the fact that I predicted him to finish fifth in the championship last year. And I thought we could have kind of see the Sebastian Vettel of old coming back, which in the end never actually happened. But yeah, certainly one of the greats, not the greatest of all time, as you probably mentioned, but definitely is up there with some of the best that we've seen in the sport. And yeah, I think you kind of mentioned it there, Callum. I saw a tweet from Alex Jakes earlier saying that Vettel could just go on to do anything now. He could be a team manager, team principal. He could go into punditry, commentary. He could go and become a politician. He could just do anything, and it would probably work for him. Joshua, I did see Extreme E. I don't know if any of you saw this. Replied to Formula One's tweet saying that we're environmentally friendly. We only do 5 races a year. We're kind of the perfect sport for you. So, but I think that'd be quite good for him to go there. It wouldn't surprise me if he went there.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I do fear it's you sort of see a lot of these sort of older drivers just now want to go completely away from the sport. I know we've had others drop in and out of it, but for me, I think he's done now. I think he probably just wants to spend time with his family, sort of maybe take a year out, and then maybe come back into an ambassadorial role if the sport changes, or sort of is a drive for change in the sport. I agree with Callum. I think to have him on punditry with such a recent retirement, and knowing the drivers also well, could be a very interesting dynamic. I know you've got that with Rosberg a bit, with more so on Hamilton and Alonso and Vettel, but to have such a fresh driver, and then you maybe get rid of some of the less favoured pundits. But for me, I think he'll step away from it completely and just focus on him and his family.
I think, Callum, the final thing to say is one driver leaving the grid is another driver's kind of gain. Somebody is going to come in to replace him. And I think young drivers in general must be, kind of grinning at the fact that the older drivers may be retiring a little bit earlier than we expected them to. And that's giving them a bigger chance to kind of step into F1.
Yeah, perhaps. It's obviously, I don't know how obviously every F1 seat is coveted, no matter where it is on the grid. And there'll be a lot of interest in the Aston Martin seat. I'm curious if they have anyone lined up, because I don't think they were expecting Seb to retire. I think there was, if you listen to Mike Crack, team principal, he was always like, yeah, we want him to stay for at least another year. I think they believed in the project. There's been a lot of structural stuff at Aston Martin, a lot of change behind the scenes, and I think they were hoping to kind of have at least a little bit of continuity into next year, and so they can build up. But yeah, I don't know if they've got anyone lined up. I'm sure there's a ton of people in F2 who they could look at. Piastri is linked with every single seat on the grid, even the ones that aren't available. So he's obviously going to be an option, especially if Alonso decides to keep going for next year. I heard someone say Mick Schumacher. I don't really see that happening, to be honest. I think he'll stay in a Ferrari associated seat for now. And yeah, but it's going to be interesting to see. I think Lance Stroll will definitely stay now. I can't see them changing both drivers. That was always one thing. I was like, if Vettel stays, maybe they'll get someone to replace Stroll, but I think they'll keep Stroll now and they'll bring someone else in.
Nick de Vries is kind of another name that's kind of being
Yeah.
thrown about. I know he's been kind of linked towards Williams more strongly than Aston Martin. I think their reserve driver is Hulkenberg, isn't it? I think it would probably be unlikely to see him maybe step in, but it would be quite funny to see him back on the grid again for a full season. Obviously, seen him a couple of times thanks to COVID over the last few years. So I think watch this space is the thing to say about that Aston Martin seat, and maybe we'll find out who's going to take it over the summer break. Maybe we'll wait until the end of the season. Who knows? So definitely one to keep an eye on. Anyway, enough Aston Martin chat. Basically, thank you to Sebastian Vettel. I'm sure he's listening for everything he's done for us. The great entertainment he's provided on and off the track as well throughout the years, and we wish him well in his retirement when it comes. I'm sure we'll discuss it again after the season has finished. Let's talk about this weekend's Hungarian Grand Prix. The main memory for me is last year's utter chaos, where basically Valtteri Bottas decided to wipe out half the grid at the first corner, and then Lewis Hamilton started on his own on the grid after the red flag restart when everybody else went in the pits to change tyres, which was probably one of the funniest F1 moments on track that we've had in quite a few years. Any thoughts on Hungary for you, Joshua? Bit of a go-kart track is what a lot of people kind of saying, constant corners with kind of a long pit straight, and that's kind of about it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's okay. It was, as you said, I think it was memorable last year, maybe for the wrong reasons. You sort of see that, and Bottas takes someone out, and Norris goes, and Ricardo spins, and Verstappen gets down. It was just crazy. It was absolute carnage. And then to see one car on the starting grid and everyone else in the pits was baffling. I don't know. I'm not like really excited for it. I'm not like, it's no Silverstone. It's fine. I don't know. It is like I'll watch it. Obviously, I'll still watch it. I'll still enjoy it. But it's not my favorite track.
Callum, any thoughts or memories on the Hungaroring?
It's always a track that delivers the unexpected, and it's strange because it's not on paper a track that is particularly good for racing. It's as you say, go-kart track. It is difficult to pass on, yet somehow always exciting. It just doesn't make sense, really, does it? I for the last few years I've actually missed the race because I've typically been at Silverstone Classics. Silverstone Classics been moved this year, so I'm actually going to be able to watch it. And but I just remember last year just looking at my phone, just seeing 100 messages from you guys, and other people go, "Oh my God, Latifi's winning the race, and Lewis started on his own on a restart. Ocon's now," and I'm thinking, "What? So what's happening?" I literally watched the highlights the following day, and I was like, "What? Am I in a dream world? Like, what is happening here? This is insane, honestly." Great track. Always throws up a surprise. Which will be reflected in my wildcard prediction, which is the only thing I've actually decided on. I'm still making up my other predictions, but looking forward to it.
Cool. Let's kick off some predictions then. I'll go first, shall I? For a change, I've gone with Max Verstappen to take pole position. Callum has sent his in. He's gone for Charles Leclerc. Joshua, let's come straight to you.
See, I've also gone for Leclerc, but now knowing Callum's predictions, I'm tempted to split the difference just to make this point. But no, I'll stick with Leclerc. I've got to be honest. I've got it written down. I'd feel dishonest if I cheated. Charles Leclerc will get pole.
Fair enough. Callum, let's come straight to you.
Charles Leclerc.
Fair enough. So we are not split straight down the middle. I'm the only one that's gone with Verstappen. So that's probably why I'm bottom of the table. Let's talk about the race there. Callum, will come straight back down to you for your top three in the race.
Oh, God. What is going to happen in this race? How many points? What am I on? 18 points? What's
18,
Josh?
yeah.
We're on 16.
Two ahead of the others.
Okay,
yeah.
I won't be too risky then. He's Leclerc. Screw it. Carlos Sainz is going to win. I'm making this up.
Last time you said that, it happened.
It did, didn't it? I'll say Carlos Sainz to win. Max second. George Russell third.
Okay, nice. I have gone with Verstappen to win, Leclerc second, Sainz third. I've gone very, very safe, as you can tell. Joshua?
Leclerc to win, Max second, Hamilton third.
Okay, and Callum O has gone with Leclerc to win, Verstappen second, and Sainz third. Let's talk wild predictions. Callum O has gone for contact between two teammates, which causes damage. Not been specific with who, just any kind of teammates on the grid. There's going to be contact between them, and it's going to cause some damage. Are we allowing that?
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Okay, fair enough. Joshua,
Can we say serious damage? Because if it's like there's a bit of a scrape on the car, we're not going to give him a point.
Okay, yeah, okay. So I'll add that.
Serious damage.
Causing serious damage. I'll add that in.
Damage.
Okay, Joshua, give us your wild prediction.
It's a bit scummy. I apologise for this. Either Sainz or Perez to retire.
A bit boring, isn't it?
The Spanish contingent just disliked all of the videos.
Yeah. I may as well just say Ferrari engine blow up, mightn't I? That's basically that's basically the same. It's not really that wild at this point. Callum, my wild prediction is still blank, so I'm going to come to you.
Okay, so contrary to what I just said about Sainz winning the race, Hungary is known for first-time winners in Formula One. Obviously, Ocon last year. Before that, we've had Alonso, Button, Kovalainen, and it's also just a race that, in the past few years, like, it has gone against convention in terms of who wins it. When Mercedes were dominating in 2014, Daniel Ricciardo somehow won, and there's been other cases as well. So I'm going to say that someone who has not won a race this year so far will win in Hungary. So basically anyone other than the Ferraris and the Red Bulls. Yes, that does contrary what I just said about Sainz winning, but I'm covering both bases here, okay?
That's fair enough. We don't have any Hungarian drivers, no Hungarian teams, so I can't go with that. My prediction is still blank. I was going to kind of go for a Callum M star prediction and go with the shots of the water park, behind the track, because I can't think of anything else at the moment. It's like, do I go with something boring like, oh, both McLarens will get the top 10, or something like that? So yeah, I'm going to go with 3 shots of the water park throughout the race. It can be focused, or maybe I think we'll include in the background as well. So if we see the water park 3 times during the race, then that's my wild prediction. Bit Callum M style, but I've got no other choice. So yeah, I think that's pretty much everything from the 3 of us this week. We'll be back next week, hopefully after Hungary. Got a few ideas for kind of that one. We're going to have a look back at obviously the Grand Prix that we've watched, and then I think, Callum, we're going to have a look at some silly season predictions next week.
Hopefully, yes, hopefully.
Cool. So that should be good. And then a little bit further, kind of in the middle of the summer break, we'll have our dream calendar pod that we've kind of been promising all summer, all season. So we'll get into that, and then obviously look ahead to, is it Spa, I think, that's first back after the break. So we'll have a look to that. Callum's face lit up as I said that. So yeah, thank you very much to those of you that have listened or watched. Make sure you like the video if you're on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or subscribe to us on whatever podcast feed you're listening on. Follow us on Twitter as well. Is it Lights Out Pod _ something like that?
Something like that.
Yeah, Josh will put it all in the show notes and description, whatever. So yeah, thanks very much for listening. Thank you to Joshua and Callum, as always, for being here. And until next time, we'll see you all later. Bye-bye.